In the name of the Most High, I certainly hope you're doing well. Many people don't realize there's such a thing as a cardboard town. It's one of those things. You don't want to throw mud or bricks or even sticks in a cardboard town. You gotta watch your language in a cardboard town. Is there really any way back to the life you used to lead? The cardboard counts for them, but they don't know it. I wish to God they wouldn't throw it, but help me out, Hal. Listen to this. Hey, how you doing out there? You listening to the Zeph Report? You've come to the right place. Really sad for those who don't take care of that cardboard town. They got like a couple of barber shops and a cake maker right down the street there. You don't want to get that mad over there now.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Porthole to Justice. This is Amelia Duran, your host, and it is the 31st of March, end of March. Oh my gosh, I'll be so happy when this moon cycle is over with. I get like hypersensitive to the moon cycles, and I think all of my senses get really heightened and aware. So I'm going to have on, there was a heated debate yesterday with Miss Lotus Justice and Chris Hallet in the Social Media News Network. So I'm going to have him on. I'm going to go ahead and call him up, see if we can't understand all of this E-clause in the law. Trying to figure it out.
Hello?
Hi, welcome to the Porthole to Justice.
Hey, how you doing, Amelia?
I'm good. I was just sharing with the audience, about I posted an article in the Social Media News Network yesterday about, I think it was a gentleman that was able to practice law without becoming a lawyer or in law, and it sparked a heated debate.
Well, I mean, that's just it. I mean, like, for example, I guess it depends on what you're talking about practicing. I mean, that was kind of the big question that I ran into when I originally talked them over the monopoly argument. And, they were like, well, we don't understand. There's one law. Said, well, that's true, but there's more to it than what you're technically practicing. What you're practicing is a very minuscule piece of it. Mm-hmm. And they went, wait, what? So, life is more expansive than just innocent or guilty. Mm-hmm. And they said, give us an example. So I gave them an example. And they got it and understood it, but it was still difficult for them to wrap their heads around, so they just said, okay, give us more. Mm-hmm. And that was when I pro-hawked into, not really pro-hawked, I kind of brought in the Supreme Court, and, that's why I posted that letter.
Well, it was
I knew that had already been ratified. I mean, the research already revealed that. But I said, they said keep it simple, so I kept it simple.
Well, the article was about a native Mexican, longtime New Yorker, who became very well-versed in the law. And apparently he just became New York's first undocumented lawyer. So I found this interesting, and I posted it to Social Media News Network. I had no idea that I think there was something like 37 comments. I mean, I didn't get a chance to read them all.
Right.
So I wanted to get your side of the argument.
Well, basically it is, like I said, I mean, the law is expansive, and what's currently being practiced is such a very minuscule piece of it. They're literally finding new ways to have the same old arguments, so much so to the point they've had to come out and ask dumb questions. Like, for example, in the Hardwick case, they said, hey, can we lie? Of course, like, no.
That's the Rican versus Hardwick case, which was the social workers they took it all the way to Supreme Court, stating that they had a constitutional right to lie in these juvenile court cases.
Actually, it was the 9th District Court of Appeals. It didn't make it as far as SCOTUS. SCOTUS refused it.
Oh, really?
They pretty much said that they would uphold the 9th Circuit's findings.
Oh,
was pretty much how that went.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Know that. Well,
yeah.
It was almost like it was just, I think what was so shocking about it was that they even brought it to the appeals court for debate. Most courts that you go into, it says at the bottom of all of your court documents, it says under the penalty of perjury, and a little quote at the bottom of your court documents. Well, in juvenile court, it's not there. It's not listed there anywhere, actually.
That's interesting, because it is here in Florida. At least in the documents that I have read and worked with.
Well, in California, I know me personally, in my court case, it was not there.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's
then that's what's called a deficient pleading. And if it's deficient under Articles of Procedure, Rules of Procedure, that document is inadmissible. Mm-hmm. So, again, if you have a case where they're swearing to, an affidavit of truth, well, what makes it an affidavit of truth means you're swearing under penalty of perjury. Mm-hmm. If the penalty of perjury language is not there, it's not an affidavit. And if an affidavit is and we're finding this a lot, by the way, is deficient in any way, or it can be debunked, you can go all the way back to the very beginning and wipe your whole case out. Done, gone. And the courts, that seems to be the general consensus based on my work, that the court's like, you know what, you're not wrong. We don't like it any more than you do, but it is what it is. So.
Well, I mean, I guess in California, what in my particular experience, the attorneys were, withholding evidence and, basically not really fulfilling their fiduciary duties in the juvenile courts. And for the most part, people have public defenders. But, that's
that's a fallacy, because attorneys don't have a fiduciary duty.
Yeah, but...
And that was another thing my research revealed. It's like, wait a minute, what do you mean you don't have a fiduciary duty? How can that even possibly be?
Mm-hmm.
And their basic first loyalty or allegiance is to the court, or the bar, which is basically the same thing. That's where I originally went at them with the monopoly. I said, well, you can't do that. So if I can't hold a monopoly over telecommunications, you damn sure can't hold a monopoly over the courts. Forget that. And, that argument became more expansive than I originally anticipated, because remember, I'm like everybody else. I'm one guy fighting, this monstrosity.
So if they don't have any fiduciary obligation in law, then what is the point of hiring a lawyer to represent you in the courts?
Exactly. Because that position is literally fiction. It's not even there. And when I did my initial judicial report, that's why I call them fiduciary practitioner's report, because as fiduciary, I have that duty to my client, right? Whether I agree or disagree, I have to perform that task as requested by the client.
Mm-hmm.
Not the court, not the other side, not even myself. It's what the client says. So, for example, in real estate, if I think, the market shows a piece of property is worth $100,000, and the client says, well, I want to make a cash offer of $70,000, no, and I'm going to get my face smacked, I have to go make the offer.
Mm-hmm.
And take the smack in the face. It happens a lot. So, and to find out that these people called attorneys that you hire and pay money to represent you, they don't have that same obligation. That was a bit of a whoa, time out moment for me. Like, so wait a minute. There's absolutely no barometer. There's no unit of measure. There's no zero starting point. Is that right? And as it turns out, this practice has spent 230 years trying to hide that. There is one word in the Constitution that binds them to the law, though, and that word is an emolument, because they have an advantage in the court.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got nothing to do with so much the money, but as much as it does the advantage. And I pointed that out, and that was like the crap, we're busted moment.
So when you say emoluments clause, can you just define that really quickly for our listeners?
Well, basically the emoluments clause, as it's written, okay, without the original 13th Amendment, basically points to the Democrats' version of it, which is anybody who's a millionaire or a billionaire cannot serve in government. And that's actually incomplete, because what it says with the original 13th Amendment said, it doesn't matter how much your net worth is. It matters in that if, like, for example, George Washington, he was a businessman. He was our first president. Mm-hmm. And so, like, fast forward to this, to our current president, it doesn't matter that Trump is a millionaire or a billionaire. He's taken all of his corporations and everything, put everything in trust. He doesn't even mess with it. And any profits that do come in from foreign dignitaries, he gives them straight back to the people. It goes straight into the treasury. So, I mean, if anybody's read the contracts, they know that. But most people don't read the contracts, so they don't know that. Mm-hmm. So, kind of the short version here is what we boil down to, what the emoluments clause actually is as it's constructed, is it's designed to protect government from bureaucracy, okay, the lobbyists, and all of this crap that we've allowed over 230 years to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because we never really, we didn't care. I mean, and I'll be the first one to admit, I was like everybody else. I was out living my life, doing my job, you know, kind of running around with my head up my butt. And I just said, okay, well, we'll elect these guys to do it. Well, you know, they didn't know, we didn't know that these bureaucrats were in there doing everything they could do, construct all of this fraud. That's the constructive fraud that we all deal with. And it was all created under bureaucracy. So when you look at these different codes and statutes, which are actually fiction, it's just it was stuff that was written to manage government, for them to basically claim that has any jurisdiction over the people, well, no. No, it doesn't. Mm-hmm. Well, then family court and that fiction under admiralty jurisdiction was written, and as long as it was practiced in good faith, it worked okay, but it was still broken. And it's only gotten progressively more hostile since it was enacted. It's just that original mechanism has just repeated itself. That's all.
So in the lower courts, like the juvenile courts, for instance, they say that the Constitution isn't applicable because, the judges have the preponderance of evidence and they have what's called plenary of authority, which gives them the ultimate discretion. And
actually, that's a fallacy, and I'm going to tell you why that's a fallacy.
Okay.
If you look at the flag, when you go into court, most people believe they're walking into what's referred to as an Article 3 court or a court of law. Okay? Under admiralty jurisdiction, which is more geared towards a court of equity, the law in the Constitution does not apply. So, for example, when you swear an oath under admiralty jurisdiction to serve our country, okay, you are also giving up your constitutional rights when you swear that oath, and you are going to be held under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, okay? Well, the difference between the UCMJ and the current practice outside of the military, ironically, military people actually have more protections under the UCMJ than those of us living on the land that are still under that same jurisdiction but without that extra protection. If that makes any sense. So,
kind of.
When we walk into the court and we see that gold fringe around the flag, that's like, well, hey, that's an admiralty court. What's that doing in here? Mm-hmm. That doesn't belong here. That belongs on a military base somewhere. And that's the disconnect, right? They're given guidance documents to make them believe that they have this discretion, and no, they don't. And that's one of the reasons why the federal court can't even hear a family law case, because it's the family law and no-fault divorce from its inception has been void because it's repugnant to our form of government. It violates damn near every word in the Constitution. Mm-hmm. So,
you walk into the family courts and you don't really it's like what's happening, but you don't really.
Right.
You come out kind of with whiplash. You're like, what just happened?
Yeah. Exactly. You come out of that thing feeling like you just came off of a roller coaster with about 70 loop-de-loops. Mm-hmm. And the answer is that's the reason you feel that way is because that's exactly what just happened to you. What you walked into is not what you were taught to believe what court is. Mm-hmm. It's that's not even the proper scale. So when it appears that's why criminals have more rights than the rest of us, that's because criminals are tried on the constitutional law scale.
I would actually,
we maintain our rights.
I would actually venture to say that our courts have more to do with theater nowadays than they do.
Problem. I'm sorry?
I would venture to say that the courts actually have more to do with theater than they do with what you see on TV.
Well, and also too, you have to understand something. This is where it gets complicated. Remember, you're talking about constructive fraud. This is written in such a manner to say, well, we can do whatever we want, but you can't hold us accountable for it. Mm-hmm. And we've allowed that process to happen for 230 years. again, like I said, I'm just as guilty as the next man or woman.
To such an extent,
I never questioned it.
It's to such an extent that there is no remedy in the courts right now. I mean, that's how I feel as just a layman person, that there is really no remedy in the courts. I mean, you could go on and on forever.
Right. That's right. And your assessment is truly accurate, by the way. There's no remedy in admiralty jurisdiction when it comes to questions of law. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So, because the admiralty court freely admits, we don't hear the Constitution. We don't hear issues of law. Well, then you say, well, then what the hell am I doing here? Mm-hmm. Well, usually by then it's years have passed, and you've already done the reading and research that most of us have done, and you come to the same conclusion. By then, your kids have aged out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what they want you to do. They want you to chase your rear end, and during the time where you're chasing your rear end, trying to keep your lights turned on and your food in your mouth and your, whatever, and keep the bills paid, whatever, they're extorting money from you, right? Mm-hmm. And
exactly.
It's a piece here, a piece there, a piece here, a piece there, and it just goes from bad to worse. So now that we reached a point, like in my case, this is actually my second go around with this, so I already knew how it turned out. Mm-hmm. So I actually just continued on with my original research, and that's when I stumbled across the anti-bureaucracy mechanism that I stumbled across that I should have found in the very beginning. I didn't have the experience I do now. So I said, okay, well, now that I have that experience, now I know what to do with it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've been doing with it.
Can you explain to the audience a little bit about your background, your expertise, and how you came about came about the E-Clause? And
yeah, absolutely. My company is based off of the job that I used to do when I was, same as everybody else and living my life. It's called loss prevention. And what loss prevention does is exactly what it says, prevents loss within our corporation, whatever the corporation is. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about issues that have come across my desk, and you name it, I've seen it: personnel, shipping and receiving, and even questions of, what's called corporate espionage or bureaucracy, whatever you want to call it.
These courts don't operate much different.
I never knew that those were called emoluments within the corporation. I knew there was an integrity issue that needed to be protected, so the corporation didn't suffer consumer confidence problems. Mm-hmm. So,
and the courts don't operate much different. They're all individual corporations. And
trust is the same thing.
Yeah, it's similar. I was just saying it's the same thing because the courts operate as corporations themselves.
Correct, under public trust.
Yeah.
Right, the consent of the governed.
Yeah. So you and I were talking because, we've been, I think you and I, we've been crossing paths in this movement and in trying to expose the corruption for 5-6 years now?
Easily. It's hilarious now that there's been, they've literally asked so many stupid questions of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's basically just thrown them to the wolves and said, you know what? You guys created this monster. I'm going to let the people deal with you. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much where they're at with it right now, which is why they're very selective, even more so than normal, about what cases they hear. And, it's like I told them when I first started E-Clause, I said, look, I'm not asking for prosecution. I want to just talk about equal protections under the law. Congress enacted something called the Title 42 for a reason. Let's just stick with that, and we'll establish a baseline, and then you guys can go from there. Mm-hmm. And they said, okay, that's fine. You send us what you send us, do what you do, and we'll review it. Well, the more I did it, and the more everybody reviewed it, the more they liked it. I'm like, oh, okay, well, here we go. So now I got to figure out a way to make a living with this thing and still continue my work. Mm-hmm. So that's why I do it for, my private companies here locally.
Monetizing is tricky
my work
because
in the courts and with my clients that people see is I don't charge for that. That's all pro bono.
I mean, monetizing is really tricky in this movement, and I don't even broach the subject simply because, the objective is to get the children home, and you have to understand that these parents, every single penny that they're making is going to the courts that's extorting them, basically, for them to get their children home. And
myself included.
So
I'm no different than anybody else.
There's always this heated debate about advocates in the movement, which I find somewhat childish, simply because some people aren't, they're doing it for like notoriety, or me personally, I don't really engage in the movement. Because my goal is to data mine, profile, and vet the corruption within the courts and the child protective services. And my audience, the people that I'm trying to reach and socialize, are the general population that's under the misconception that child protective services is there to protect children, or is there in the best interest of the child. And that is a really huge task. So I don't really, a lot of times people will complain because I'm not active in the movement. I'm not going live and like interviewing parents, and, my goal is to empower parents with the tools and information so that they can fight their own case and bring their children home. And there is every single case is so different. And there is no guaranteed pathway, I think, to, bringing your children home. But a lot of people think that I guess they think that I'm trying, I don't really care about all this stuff that's going on. I know that it's really heated and volatile right now. Like, and we were talking about this on the phone the other evening, and I can't get into it, and
the more I see, the more I laugh, to be completely honest with you, because it's that childish. I mean, I'm not, I have a list of clients that I service, and I'm gone, during business hours. So I don't normally have a lot of time to be, horsing around on social media, or if, I'm taking a break, I'll pop on and see who's doing what, and like that. But, when you start getting this whole thing about, so-and-so is, making $5 for this or that. Well, guess what? Advocacy costs money, right? I mean,
if you really want to be effective,
buy a pack of ink cartridges. What's that cost you?
Yeah.
You're depending on your market, you're going to be anywhere between $40 to $60, depending on what market you're in and what machinery you got.
But what I've noticed,
my laser printer is $100 worth of cartridge every time I reload a new toner cartridge in it. So,
but what I've noticed, Chris, in the last couple years, there's sprung up this whole advocate and activist personality.
Well, there's a difference right there. Those are two different words. An advocate is somebody who will stand beside somebody and stand with them. Okay, an activist has an agenda. Okay, I'm not an activist in any way. I'm here to say, okay, I'm going to stand with this person, whoever my client is, and we're going to discuss this issue, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. And that's exactly what I do.
And that's a lot of work. That is a lot of work. I mean, you're talking 5-10 inches of legal court documents that you have to go through, and then you have to vet evidence that would support your argument. And then you have to prepare, and then you have to make sure that your client is filing. And it costs money.
Yep. Every time I file a report, it's $143.75. So, and I do a couple, 2, 3 of those a month. And I pay for every bit of that. So, again, that's one of the reasons why I got special dispensation through Congress to do what I do.
So
I said, look,
and
you can't get accurate reporting from the Department of Justice, so I'll tell you what I can do. I can do it for you. And then you guys make the decision. And they said, okay, that's fine. No problem.
So when you say Congress, because you mentioned the other night when we were talking on the phone that, you have people in Congress that are supporting the E-Clause and the Emoluments Clause. And so when you say who are these individuals? I'm very curious.
Well, I mean, it depends on the committee because there's different cases that go to different committees. Not every committee is the Judicial Committee. Mm-hmm. Okay. There's the Road Department Committee. There's the, well, not just specifically Road Department, we'll say Infrastructure Committee. And, there's these various committees that do these various things. So when I explain to them actually what an emolument is, which is basically everything in government, when you swear an oath or you're hired by government to do a job, everything you do is an emolument. Everything, and it's not just your paycheck, it's your position. Mm-hmm. Your position is what's called an inherited emolument, that seat you sit in. So, and because they had no idea about this. Nobody had ever told anybody anything like this. That's their, 230 years worth of dust on this word. Nobody's mentioned it before. Mm-hmm. So now that we're talking about it and we're having that conversation, it's like they're going, well, no wonder people are pissed. It's like, okay, and well, how do we fix it? I said, well, I can bring you the information and you guys can decide to do with it whatever you think is justified and appropriate to protect the integrity of the seat and the Constitution as it's written in your particular state or the federal Constitution. So that's why I write reports. I don't write pleadings. I write reports.
Is these contacts would vary from state to state? I mean, I'd be curious to know just simply because of, I'm going to digress a little bit, but, Child Protective Services, that's my fight. And it's an unregulated government agency. And a lot of these I'm not going to say names, but I've heard from several sources that there is an advocate in the movement that wants to take down the porthole to justice. Well, I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, well, who is going to be the one that's going to data mine this information and regulate this agency? If you guys take me out, then who do you guys have?
Right. Well, I mean, and that's just it, because anytime any one of us gets close, you got to remember there are paid people that are paid to come in here and keep us divided. Why? Because that's what they do. Mm. And I'm not playing in that game. I mean, one of the reasons that I've targeted CPS is because guess what? That's where the records are.
Yep.
So, like in my case, I didn't have a CPS case.
Yeah.
CPS case. My case was what's called automatic clearinghouse, or ACH, because that's where the records are in my case. So that's why I did my case the way I did it.
How did you go about obtaining your records?
Every department in government had this problem. It was like, oh Lord,
How did you personally go about obtaining your records from Child Protective Services? Because it's a huge issue. A lot of parents are having issues, even sometimes attorneys.
Mm-hmm. Right, and here's the thing, and government's kind of tight-lipped about it right now because they know that's where the records are. So you have to file what's called a FOIA, or Freedom of Information Act request, and that process is at least a three-step process. And basically, it's the first one is you file the initial request. They deny it, and they say there's some form of reason, whatever it is. That reason is called a statute. You have to research that statute and say, usually it's something to do with national security. So then all you do is you rebut their response and you say, what does this case between me and so-and-so have to do with national security? So you debunk their argument and they go, oh, crap, okay. So, well, we're going to not deny it again, but we're going to throw in another statute, and you do that same process. So by the time they get the third request, they're like, you know what? Okay, I'm just going to send the information. And you're going to get what's called a redacted document. And what's usually redacted is certain parties' names. Usually it's key players. But at least you have the document and you have something to go on, because guess what? On that document, there is a lot of key information that you will need. Mm-hmm. And I've got multiple versions for my particular case, but...
So I've noticed something that often reoccurs because, as you know, in the porthole to justice, we emphasize the fraud on the court, which I consider to be legalized human trafficking. When there's fraud on a case, I call it human trafficking because that's exactly what it is.
Right.
In my own personal opinion. What I will often see when there is not enough to substantiate a case, to meet the standard for abuse, or I forget what it's called, but
abuse and neglect.
Abuse and neglect. What I often will see is, inserted case numbers into these cases where it for the layman person, it appears that this case would, it doesn't in other words, what I'm trying to say is it qualifies the case to reach the standard so that they can meet the standards for the funding.
Right.
And that's where the American Safe Families Act comes in, and the federal incentives. And so this is like something that commonly occurs. And it's really disturbing to me. I mean, it's not, these aren't isolated incidences at all. And I've had, I've had, letters from that I've published to the Porthole to Justice for the members there to turn their evidence into the DOJ and the FBI and the Children's Bureau of Investigation. And they kind of refer them back and forth. And then they send a standard letter which says that their case doesn't meet the standards for investigation by their agency. But it's they point the fingers in both directions. You need to report it to this agency. Oh, you need to report it to this agency. And it's just like a vicious cycle. And I've been doing this for 7 years. And there's still it's still there's no resolution.
Right, and here's what it is. And remember, because I've been doing this for 28 years, I've already been to every one of those agencies. I've knocked on every one of those doors more than once. And I have found actually doors that they never even mention because probably they don't even know they exist. So when I initially started my situation, I went to every door. And I mean every door before I filed in court. And said, okay, I'm going to get all of the kiss my butt letters, or dear friend letters as I call them. And when I walk into court, I'm already going to have them. So when they say, oh, you have to go to where and where and where and where, guess what? I already did that. They already told me to come here. And you see what I'm saying? I had them boxed in from the moment I walked in the door. And, again, that's just loss prevention. That's just the way I do things. That's the way the corporation does things. I'm not going to stand there and waste somebody's time unless I have exhausted every avenue first. And, again, because I've done that. I just know how government works. I know how the corporation works. I know how it all works. I've worked it. So, to go in there and do this from a completely different angle of, this is not stuff that that needs to be in this court. Where the hell did this court come from? And now, of course, everybody's in the, was it me? Was it me? Was it me? Well, gee, I'm shocked. I mean, this is the part where, I feel like I'm, there are days where I feel like I've walked in the romper room, That's why I would say, if I ever get my hands on not me, I'm going to whoop his ass. But,
kind of dry. So you mentioned the FOIA, the Freedom of Information
Act. We're already
at
that point.
You mentioned the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act. What is the best way for parents to, what's the simplest way you can explain that parents can file a FOIA?
Well, a FOIA is basically you go to your state's .gov website, and you type in Freedom of Information Act in the search engine, and then you can type PDF after that. That'll bring up the document itself. So when you hit search, it'll pull up a blank version of a PDF. Then you just print the PDF and you write down on the Freedom of Information Act request blank what you want and which department it goes to, and there'll be different versions of it. So that'll kind of give you a place to start. Mm-hmm. And once you've opened a dialogue, okay, what you do with that dialogue is key. Now, keeping in mind, if you do open up a dialogue with somebody in a completely different department, this person knows nothing about you. They know nothing about your case. Mm. And it's easy to become frustrated. And when you get frustrated, they're just going to hang up on you and turn you away. And knowing and understanding that how many, a couple thousand requests they're getting in a day, mm-hmm. They're probably knows nothing about what's going on. Mm-hmm. So, you need to make sure, and you need to kind of conduct yourself in a professional manner. As difficult as that can be sometimes, because it's kind of the way of things. It's, again, because it's constructive fraud. I call it compartmentalized constructive fraud. And what compartmentalized is this piece over here doesn't even know what this piece is doing. Mm-hmm. And this piece doesn't know what that one's doing, and so on and so forth. And so nobody knows what anybody else is doing. That's exactly
why they keep
but that's not what we're told. We're told that everybody knows what is going on, mm-hmm. and that's not the case. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, that's exactly why it's so compartmentalized, and it also allows them to have free reign to convolute your case more and more mm-hmm. as you go deeper into the process. And mm-hmm. unless you have endless amount of funds, it's really difficult to fight, and a lot of these parents, a lot of people don't know that they don't have fee waivers in the juvenile courts. So if these parents want to go and get access to their transcripts, they have to pay. They have to pay up front.
Which they're not supposed to have to, which our tax dollars is supposed to fund. Yeah. And again, that's another disconnect. The guidance that these juvenile courts have been given about fees and those types of things, that's bad guidance. So because that's bad guidance, again, that goes back to the reporting. Who told you that you had the right to charge? Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. I just got this document that says I have to do this. Oh, Lord. Okay, so now I have to go find out who the policymaker is. So you see what I'm saying? And it's just, I've already done every bit of that, every one of those steps, mm-hmm. all of them. And then I also found out that, examining government, the way government's constructed.
I would honestly like to audit the clerk's office in the juvenile courts to see if they actually get funding for these fee waivers for these parents, because a lot of these parents, these are poor people. And every other court has fee waivers available for people that are disadvantaged or, don't make a certain amount of money.
Correct. Well, and that's one of the things when I went in and said, hey, look, I understand that there's this secondary mechanism we've never used in 230 years. It's called the State Department. Now, we have a State Department in the federal government, and it's typically used for handling what's called issues of state. Mm-hmm. And issues of state are anything from disbursement of funds from the U.S. government to pick a state to foreign relations, right? So I started examining different state governments. Mm-hmm. And different state governments don't even have a Department of State. They have a Department of Justice, but they don't have a Department of State. Everything has to go, like one state, Utah, you've got a lieutenant governor. That's all you got out there. So there's no mechanism. There's no spine there. That check and balance was never built. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, there's a constitutional deficiency because it's in law, it's in the model, but it's not built. Why did we not do that? Mm-hmm. Then I started to research it and I said, well, that's where it is. It was the War of 1812. The states didn't get that far. They were busy fighting the war. So, it's like, okay, well, we need to pick up where we left off and finish building this sucker. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. I just picked up where they left off and finished building it. I just called it loss prevention because that's what I know. Mm-hmm. And it's about, okay, everybody needs to tell everybody what's going on. And that's what we've established here in Florida, is I've literally connected as many of these departments together through my portal, and I give them access to it. And they report directly to committee, or they'll call me or whatever, and I'll say, okay, well, what's it say, and what's the law say? And we say, okay, well, there's a conflict. We need to report that conflict and let the lawmakers handle it. And that's exactly what they're doing. So we're giving them the information that they've been begging for. We're just doing it through the Department of State, not the Department of Justice. And, that's why if you kind of watch the differences between, why Congress is starting to get a whole lot of information now, they're actually going through the Office of Inspector General. Mm-hmm. Well, I wonder where they got that idea. That's where I connected my company to here in the state of Florida. We've got an Office of Inspector General. Uh-huh. And I just, in full disclosure, I had nothing to hide. Mm-hmm. I didn't do anything wrong. And I got the letters of, that proved that I didn't do anything wrong. Everything was unfounded. Mm-hmm. I wasn't even in the same zip code. So it was like, well, that was hard. And, now it's like, well, now we're in a real pickle because, that we've shown that this thing, it does work, it does exist in law, and it does kind of answer a whole lot of questions. Mm-hmm. You got a whole bunch of people trying to use it, and it's like, oh, Lord, we got to finish building this sucker and build it yesterday. So you're going to start seeing a whole lot of states are going to announce an Office of Inspector General and, a Department of State within their state.
That would be, the Office of Inspector General would be the proper venue for fraud.
Yes.
And
your state.gov website, in Florida, it's myflorida.com, and you go through My Floridian, and then you can find, you just type, how do I report fraud? Uh-huh. Eric's website will come up, the Office of Inspector General.
So, Chris,
that's it right there.
We have so much lawlessness in the courts.
Mm-hmm.
What do you... it doesn't seem like it seems like we're getting worse down this road, like entropy is happening in the courts, and it's destabilizing.
Well, keep in mind, the people that constructed this monster stand to benefit from it. And the way they stand to benefit from it is they block our access to Congress. Uh-huh. They say, they've got Congress convinced that we're the bad guys. Well, when we show Congress we're not the bad guys, and we can show in multiple formats that we're not the bad guys.
I mean, who is on our side?
Then they started to listen, right? And once they started to listen, they went, oh, shit. And that's where they're at right now. All of them, they're like, oh, God, we got to fix this, and we got to fix this yesterday.
I mean, I'm really curious to know, who is it in Congress that's actually listening?
Well, did you see the interview with Hannity the other night? I posted it on my Facebook page with Devin Nunes. Uh-huh. I've been filing a series of reports called the Weaponized Family Court, based on Trump's executive order of, with human trafficking. I've posted some various cover pages to the ones that I've done. And so to see Devin Nunes come out and talk to Sean Hannity, he's talking about the FISA court. Mm-hmm. And he used the words, the Department of Justice weaponized the FISA court. Well, I wonder where the hell he got that idea. So, believe me, they're listening. And they're listening a lot closer than a lot of people understand. So, and this is where it becomes really difficult.
I certainly wish
the more reasonable you are, the madder the bad actors get. Because guess what? They can't touch you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've made my testimony very public, and as far as my position goes, and what I'm trying to do. Most of the work that I do is behind the scenes.
Well, this is one of the reasons why I love coming on your show, Amelia, because you do something that I don't have time to do, that I wish I had time to do, which is reach the masses. And that's just not, I'm not liquid enough to do that. If I was liquid enough to buy a radio show, I'd put you in the captain's chair and say, go to work. And that would be it. You'd have your, that's what I would do. But I'm not that liquid right now. And
well, I that would be the ideal. I would love to be able to, host a radio show and profile some of these cases and corruption, because the system is absolutely broken. And the really sad and unfortunate part is the children are paying this price. And it's funny. It's really funny, Chris, because I started this new campaign last month with Philly Slim. He's a musical artist, and he a lot of his music is centered around the family court corruption, and really nice guy, actually. And ever since I've started this campaign, Unite the Fight and the Family Unit hashtags, Facebook has been just really just censoring me. Like, I just got another ban.
Right? And it's funny you say that. I just had that conversation with another advocate today. He just took over an organization, a nonprofit, an 501c4 that has lobbying capabilities. And when he first took it over, his average number of hits within the first couple, 2-3 hours was right around 400. And his metrics were pretty good. Well, within about the last week, he's getting 20. I told him, I said, dude, you've been algorithmed.
I've
for whatever
totally
reason,
algorithmed. And the sad thing is everybody is on Facebook. If you're marketing,
when he goes and does the tweets for the organization.
Yeah, the Twitter. I mean, everybody. If you look at the numbers, everybody is mostly on Facebook. I mean, that's what.
Well, in our group.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the majority of the traffic is. It just is. I mean, that's just the way that it is right now. However, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I know that there's been a lot of FCC complaints, FTC complaints against Zuckerberg and the Facebook, because they are, their headquarters is in California, so they do fall under that jurisdiction.
Sure.
It sucks. It sucks because, it's censorship, and it limits our reach and our right to free speech. And, I really hate to see our country go down that road. It's just, is really unfortunate. It's actually pretty frustrating.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons that I chose Facebook as a venue is because I can post, 1,000-page reports that I do, or, what I just got done filing was 1,524 pages. That was my year-end report. And, it highlighted just this last year alone in the cases that I'm working. So
if
very comprehensive on that one. I got a lot of good reviews on that front, a lot of good feedback from a lot of the people that have already read it.
So if people wanted to check you out and check out the E-Clause, where can they go to check out your organization?
Actually, you can go to my kids group, Amber and Steven, and you can download any of the files that are there. They're all in the files section. Just click on the little files word, and you just go in there and you can download and read whatever you want. Everything's free.
Awesome, Chris. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, it's an ever evolving journey. I don't even
Right? Well, I didn't realize when I first started doing this, I figured, I'll go ahead and set the page up so at least the kids will be able to, read what Dad's doing. Next thing I know, I got, tens of thousands of people standing there going, dude, keep going. And I'm like, oh, Lord,
Yeah. And just for everybody that's listening into the show, I will often feature Chris Hallert's content in the Porthole to Justice, on the Porthole to Justice page on Facebook. Yeah, I just thanks so much for coming on.
I'm always glad to come on. I enjoy our little conversations that we do. It helps me vent.
Yeah, me too. Right? Because we deal with a lot. We get a lot of heat. I tell you.
You got that right.
Yeah.
So, just keep your chin up, and, for the listeners out there, as you're contacting these departments, like I said, just keep in the back of your mind that the person to whom you're speaking knows nothing about you or nothing about your case. Mm-hmm. So try to keep it short, sweet, to the point. Stay off the soapbox, which I know it's hard to do. Mm-hmm. Stick to the I always tell everybody, if you're going to do a FOIA request, pick a period of dates. Mm-hmm. 6-month period, or a 90-day period, mm-hmm. or narrow it down as best you can. And most people can go right to almost a day and say, I need the documents in this case number that were filed, within the week of week ending, blah blah blah. And if as long as you do that, you'll start to get some answers that you never thought were possible. So that's my best piece of legal advice I can give to anybody.
Uh-huh. Well, awesome. It's like, I hope you have a wonderful Easter weekend. It's so cool that you took the time out to come on the show. I totally appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up.
Okay. I'm glad we did this. Have a nice weekend, everybody, and happy Easter.
Happy Easter, Chris. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Oh, my gosh. So cool. So we're making headway. We're making progress. That was Chris Hallert, and he has filed the E-clause in the courts. And what he's basically trying to do is he is trying to break up the bar monopoly a little bit, and start getting attorneys to register locally in the states. I encourage you to check it out. Really great content. Lisa, hi, I see you out there. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. It's always nice to see. You're so supportive. You're always out there tuning in. You can follow my content. I haven't been on Twitter very much because they took away my posting bar there. I don't really know what they're doing with my Twitter page, but I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. I recently started a public personality page on Facebook because it was a way of getting around not being able to post. So also, if you want to support the content, I don't ask for money on my advocacy cases or anything like that, or when I profile. But if you want to support the MEMS and the data mining and all of that other kind of content that we do, there is a PayPal link in the Porthole to Justice. And like I always said, if some of the content there worked for you in your case, pay it forward if you got your kids home. That's about it. This has been another episode of Porthole to Justice Off the Cuff. I am your host, Amelia Duran. All right, everybody, enjoy your Easter weekend. Have a great weekend. Bye, guys.